Have you ever wondered why a man only begins to see his own reflection when a woman has already walked away? In that haunting silence, she leaves behind something primal stirs within him. What once was taken for granted now becomes sacred. What once was dismissed as ordinary now gleams with the aura of the irreplaceable. It is in her absence that his shadow rises to meet him, a shadow he has denied, suppressed, and buried beneath layers of ego. And in that confrontation, he feels the abyss of his own emptiness. A man often believes he owns time, that a woman's devotion is eternal, waiting patiently for him to awaken. He carries himself with the arrogance of borrowed power, mistaking her nurturing presence as a guarantee. Yet when she steps away, not in anger, not in revenge, but in quiet recognition of her own worth, the scaffolding of his illusions collapses. What he faces is not just the loss of her, but the loss of the version of himself she once reflected back to him. For she was not merely a companion, she was the mirror that showed him his light. Without her, he must finally see the darkness. Carl Jung taught that the shadow is the repressed, the unloved, the unwanted parts of ourselves that we banish into the unconscious. For men, this shadow often awakens in the crucible of loss. The woman who walks away becomes the catalyst, the necessary storm that forces him to meet himself without masks. He begins to feel obsession, regret, and longing, emotions he once dismissed as weakness. They are not weakness, they are the trembling voice of the shadow, begging to be acknowledged. And here lies the paradox. The very detachment of the feminine soul is what drives him into his deepest initiation. When she no longer explains, when she no longer fights for his recognition, when she chooses silence instead of pleading, he is pierced by an ancient wound. He feels the truth he avoided, that his control was an illusion, that her presence was a gift, and that no man owns the essence of a free woman. Some women never realize how much power rests in this departure. To walk away is not to abandon, it is to return to oneself. It is to honor the soul's whisper that says, "You are enough," even without his validation. And in doing so, she awakens in him a chaos he cannot tame. Suddenly he is faced with his dependency, his fear of rejection, his terror of insignificance. He sees how much of his masculinity was built upon her silent sacrifice. Without it, he confronts the naked truth of his own inadequacy. Yet it is in this pain that transformation becomes possible. The man who loses her is given a choice, to numb himself with pride or to descend into his shadow and emerge reborn. Some will retreat, finding comfort in distraction, in conquest, in shallow replacements. But others, those who dare to look into the abyss, will discover that her absence was not a curse, but a summons to growth, to humility, to the death of ego and the birth of authentic strength. And you, the woman who chooses herself, must understand this. Your silence is more eloquent than 1,000 words. Your detachment more magnetic than any attempt to convince. The man may rage, he may beg, he may retreat into silence himself, but beneath it all, he feels the echo of your withdrawal, like a wound that does not heal. It is not cruelty, it is necessity. For only through the emptiness you leave does he come face to face with his own shadow. Imagine the archetype of Persephone descending into the underworld. Her absence forces the earth to grieve, to wither, to long for her return. Such is the energy of the feminine when she steps away. She carries with her the warmth of life, and her retreat forces the masculine into a winter of the soul. In that cold silence, he must wrestle with himself, stripped of her nurturing presence. He is compelled to ask, "Who am I without her? What have I ignored? What have I destroyed by neglect?" And this is where Jung's wisdom pierces like a blade. A man does not discover his soul through comfort. He discovers it through confrontation with his shadow. The woman who walks away is not simply leaving. She is initiating him into his own darkness. Whether he rises or falls in that darkness is no longer hers to decide. Her role was never to fix, never to carry, never to diminish her own light to soothe his fears. Her role was to embody herself fully, and in walking away, she fulfills this destiny. This is the secret few dare to speak. The most powerful moment of feminine influence is not when she pleads for his attention, but when she withdraws her energy and allows the void to speak louder than words ever could. For in that void, his soul is shaken awake, and in her absence, his shadow finally comes alive. The man left behind is not merely mourning her absence, he is mourning the parts of himself he never cultivated. When a woman walks away, she withdraws not only her love, but also the reflection of his potential that she once illuminated. Her presence had been a quiet sanctuary, a soft mirror that allowed him to ignore his flaws while basking in her devotion. But when that sanctuary vanishes, the unpolished truth emerges. He must face the cracks he concealed behind bravado, the fragility he disguised with dominance, the hunger he covered with indifference. Jung wrote of projection, the unconscious act of casting one's own denied qualities onto another. Men, in their blindness, often project the role of healer, savior, or eternal mother onto the woman they desire. She becomes the vessel for their wounded child, the balm for their inadequacy, the compass for their disorientation. So long as she remains, he can pretend that balance is maintained. But when she chooses detachment, the illusion collapses. He no longer has a canvas for projection. His demons return home, demanding recognition. This is why obsession is born in her absence. It is not merely about her beauty, her body, or her presence. It is the way she once absorbed his shadows without complaint, the way she bore his unconscious weight so that he could walk lighter. When she walks away, he feels the full gravity of his shadow pressing upon him, and he panics. His ego resists, whispering that she is replaceable, that others will come. But the soul knows better. The soul recognizes that no substitute can erase the echo of the one who forced him to see himself. And here lies the paradox that few women grasp. A man often falls in love most deeply not when she gives, but when she withdraws. It is in her silence that his yearning grows deafening. It is in her detachment that his desire transforms into fixation. For desire thrives not on possession, but on distance. It is absence that carves longing into the heart. He begins to replay her words, her gestures, the subtle ways she once entered his world without force. Every memory becomes amplified, almost sacred, precisely because he no longer has her. This is not mere sentimentality, it is archetypal. Throughout myth and history, the hero awakens not through comfort, but through loss. In the void, he must wrestle with his demons, with the dragon of his own inadequacy, before he can claim any authentic power. The woman who walks away does not destroy him, she initiates him. She pushes him into the very crucible his ego avoided. And whether he ascends from it or collapses depends not on her return, but on his willingness to confront the monster within. Yet make no mistake, the woman who leaves must not romanticize his suffering. His awakening is his responsibility, not her burden. She is not the redeemer, nor the eternal healer. To wait for him, to hope for his transformation, is to fall back into the old cycle of self-sacrifice. No, her role is simply to walk with dignity, to embody her worth without apology. If he rises because the loss shattered his ego and cracked open the door to his soul. If he falls, it is because he clung to pride, refusing to meet the shadow. And for you, the one who has walked away or contemplates it, there is a truth to remember. Walking away is not merely leaving a man, it is an act of individuation. It is the declaration that your soul will no longer serve as a container for his unhealed wounds. It is a step into your own sovereignty, a reclamation of your energy. In Jungian language, it is the embrace of the anima, the feminine essence that refuses to be diminished, the force that births transformation through mystery and distance. Imagine him in the quiet of night, alone with his thoughts. The bravado fades, the distractions lose their power, and there he is, naked before his own soul. He begins to feel regret, not only for losing you, but for losing the version of himself he might have become had he cherished you. Regret is the voice of the shadow, whispering what could have been. Some men drown in that whisper, others awaken to it. But either way, it was your departure that brought it forth. This is why the woman who walks away is dangerous in the most sacred sense. She is not cruel, not vindictive, not manipulative. Her danger lies in her ability to awaken the shadow, to pull forth what a man has long denied. And in doing so, she also liberates herself. She steps into a power far greater than pleading or persuasion, the power of absence, of silence, of untouchable feminine energy. For it is in walking away that she becomes unforgettable. She ceases to be a figure in his story and becomes an archetype in his soul, the one who could not be owned, the one who revealed his shadow, the one who forced him to face himself. And once such a woman is imprinted upon the psyche, she is never erased. What unfolds in the man's psyche after her departure is not linear, but labyrinthine. He wanders through corridors of memory, shame, and hunger. At first, his ego lashes out, insisting she was wrong, ungrateful, dramatic. He blames her to shield himself from the truth. But the unconscious is relentless. Jung reminds us that what is repressed does not vanish. It waits, festering in the dark, until a moment of crisis brings it roaring to the surface. Her absence becomes that crisis. The feminine silence, sharp as glass, cuts through his defenses and exposes the frailty he had hidden from himself. The more he resists, the more the shadow grows. He may rush into other women's arms, convincing himself that she is replaceable, that desire can be numbed by novelty. Yet each encounter feels hollow, lacking the depth she once carried. For she was not merely a body to him, she was a mirror to his soul, and mirrors are not so easily found. In every new face, he searches for fragments of her essence, only to be met with disappointment. And so the obsession deepens, not because she returns, but because the emptiness she left behind cannot be filled with substitutes. Meanwhile, she who walks away continues her journey of individuation. Her power lies not in waiting for his realization, but in embracing her own becoming. In the Stoic sense, she embodies detachment, not indifference, but sovereignty. Seneca once said that true power lies in needing nothing outside oneself, and this is her gift. By stepping away, she declares that her worth is not bound to his recognition. She no longer dances for his approval or shrinks for his comfort. She becomes the rare force that terrifies and awakens at once, the woman who is whole within herself. The paradox is that her detachment intensifies her allure. A woman who no longer explains herself is enigmatic. A woman who no longer negotiates her value is magnetic. Her silence becomes a language, one that echoes louder than pleas ever could. And while she tends to her soul, he wrestles with the demons she stirred awake. For what she withdrew was not just affection, but the very scaffolding of his identity. Without her validation, the mask begins to crack. This confrontation with the shadow is brutal. He remembers the moments he ignored her presence, the times he dismissed her intuition, the countless times he mistook her softness for weakness. Now those memories return like phantoms, not to punish, but to reveal. The truth he cannot escape is this: he had the chance to honor her, and he squandered it. That realization is the threshold of his transformation. It either breaks him or rebuilds him. To the woman, this truth carries another form of power. She must understand that walking away is not just an act of rejection, it is an initiation for both herself and him. It demands courage, because it means releasing the fantasy of who he might become. It means relinquishing the savior role, refusing to pour herself into a vessel that refuses to hold water. Walking away is not coldness, it is clarity. It is the recognition that self-betrayal is a deeper wound than heartbreak. And when she leaves, she steps into the archetype of the unattainable feminine. Not because she withholds out of cruelty, but because she refuses to betray her essence. In myths and sacred texts, the unattainable woman is the one who awakens longing, the one who forces the hero to confront himself before he can approach her. She is not a prize. She is a mirror, and he must earn the right to face that reflection. From the male psyche, this is where regret begins to bite. Regret is not just sorrow, it is the acknowledgement of wasted potential. A man who has not faced his shadow cannot grasp this truth. But once she withdraws, once the silence descends, he begins to feel the depth of what he lost. And regret, when faced honestly, can become the seed of transformation. It can strip away arrogance, shatter illusions, and humble the ego enough to allow growth. Yet not every man chooses that path. Many will numb themselves with distractions, refusing to look inward. They will blame her, mock her, diminish her memory, all futile attempts to escape the mirror she left behind. But some will pause, trembling, and admit it was never about her leaving, but about what her leaving revealed in him. Those few, if they dare to descend, may rise transformed, more conscious, more awake, more capable of love without possession. And you, the woman, must never hinge your power on whether he transforms or not. His awakening is his burden. Yours is to remain steadfast in your sovereignty. Your detachment is not cruelty, it is devotion to the truth of your own soul. And in that devotion, you embody the rarest kind of feminine power, the power that does not chase, does not plead, but simply is. And so, her walking away becomes more than an ending. It becomes the spark that awakens his shadow, the silence that echoes in his soul, the mystery that no man can fully erase. For she is no longer just a woman in his life, she is the threshold between his illusion and his awakening. The shadow, once awakened, does not return to sleep. It stalks the man in his solitude, whispering truths he once ignored. He may attempt to drown it in noise, in new lovers, in endless distractions, but the shadow is patient. Jung observed that the shadow insists on being acknowledged, and when denied, it surfaces through obsession, jealousy, and despair. This is why the man finds himself haunted, replaying conversations, recalling her laughter, her silence, her absence. It is not merely nostalgia, it is the unconscious demanding to be seen. He begins to realize that her departure was not just physical, it was psychological, even spiritual. She did not merely leave his presence, she withdrew her archetypal energy. He no longer has the feminine essence to project upon, no vessel to contain his unlived emotions. This void is unbearable to the uninitiated man, for it exposes his dependency. His ego told him he was independent, self-sufficient, above need. But her absence unmasks the lie. He was not sovereign, he was tethered. And the thread that bound him has snapped. This is why he oscillates between anger and longing. Anger because he feels abandoned, longing because he feels incomplete. He cannot yet see that what he truly mourns is not her, but the part of himself she awakened. He confuses the external woman with the inner anima, that inner feminine soul image Jung spoke of, buried deep within every man. She, in walking away, forces him to confront that inner figure, and unless he integrates it, he will always remain fractured. For the woman, this truth is liberation. She does not exist to complete a man, to hold his soul for him, to mother his wounds. The man must seek his own individuation, his own reconciliation with his shadow and anima. She who walks away honors this sacred boundary. Her absence is not cruelty, it is medicine. Bitter medicine? Yes, but necessary. Just as Seneca declared that hardship refines the spirit, so too does her withdrawal refine the man if he is willing to endure the fire. And here's the paradox of feminine power. The softer her detachment, the sharper his awakening. She need not rage, need not curse, need not prove her worth. The silence speaks louder. Silence is the crucible where the male ego begins to fracture. Silence is the altar where he meets his shadow. Silence is the mirror he cannot escape. What she once gave freely, her presence, her attention, her compassion, he now craves like air, and the absence of that air suffocates him until he either evolves or collapses. Consider how myths tell this story again and again. When Inanna descends into the underworld, all life withers until her return. When Persephone is taken, the earth mourns her absence. The withdrawal of the feminine force shakes existence itself. So too does a man's soul mourn when the woman who embodied that force walks away. She is not merely gone. She has taken with her the axis around which his illusions once revolved. He is left spinning in chaos, forced to rebuild from ashes. But here is where the deeper truth emerges. Many women underestimate the sacred impact of their absence. They fear that walking away means they are weak, that they have failed. Yet in truth, to walk away is to step into archetypal strength. It is to embody the queen who refuses to bow, the priestess who protects her temple, the warrior who honors her own soul above all else. It is not abandonment, it is alignment. It is the reclamation of the energy once poured into someone who did not honor it. For the man, this becomes a mirror of mortality. He realizes that time cannot be reversed, that some choices are final. Regret becomes his teacher, whispering of the days when her love was within reach and he squandered it. This regret is not punishment from her, it is punishment from his own soul. And if he allows it, regret can humble him, strip away his arrogance, and prepare him for rebirth. But if he resists it, it festers and he becomes a ghost, haunted by the woman who revealed his shadow. And you, the woman who dared to step away, must remember, his awakening is not your responsibility, and his collapse is not your failure. You are not the savior nor the destroyer. You are the mirror. You are the catalyst. You are the storm that awakens the sleeping forest. By reclaiming your power, you remind him of his own, whether he rises to it or not. Your role is not to wait at the threshold. Your role is to walk into the fullness of your becoming. In this, you embody the rarest form of attraction, not the allure that pleads, but the allure that cannot be captured. The feminine soul that is whole within itself becomes both a wound and a mystery to the masculine. He may chase, he may despair, he may rage, but he will never forget. For you have awakened in him something larger than desire. You have awakened his shadow. What remains after the departure is not simply silence, but a haunting presence that shapes the man's inner world. He feels her absence like an echo that reverberates through every chamber of his psyche. At first, he tries to drown it in distractions, the noise of work, the thrill of conquest, the comfort of routine, but the echo follows him, persistent and merciless. It grows louder in the stillness of night when there is no one left to perform for, no one to hide from. Alone, he confronts the truth. Her walking away has stripped him of illusions, and now he must face what he is without her reflection. Jung warned that the soul resists wholeness until crisis forces it forward. For men, that crisis often arrives in the form of abandonment, rejection, or loss. The feminine presence, once taken for granted, was the bridge between his conscious ego and his unconscious depths. Her absence burns that bridge, and without it, he cannot escape himself. The shadow, long denied, rises like smoke from a hidden fire. It whispers of his arrogance, his indifference, his blindness. It reminds him that love is not ownership, that devotion is not infinite, that even the most giving woman eventually chooses herself. But it is precisely in this suffering that the possibility of transformation begins. Loss is the crack through which light may enter, but only if he allows himself to be humbled. If he accepts his powerlessness, if he admits that he squandered what was sacred, he begins to descend into his own underworld. This descent is painful, but it is initiation. Jung called it individuation, the journey into wholeness, where one must integrate the rejected, the denied, the unloved. The woman who walked away becomes the guide, not through presence, but through absence. She is not there to lead him, yet her withdrawal becomes the path itself. For the woman, this truth is liberating. She must understand that her absence is not emptiness, but force. It is the quiet power that breaks the cycle of self-betrayal. Walking away is not weakness, it is wisdom. It is the moment she realizes that her energy is not meant to be wasted on convincing, pleading, or shrinking. By withdrawing, she honors the most sacred vow, the vow to her own soul. And yet, paradoxically, this very act of sovereignty awakens in the man a desire deeper than any she could manufacture through effort. Attraction rooted in mystery is far more potent than attraction rooted in sacrifice. The man cannot stop thinking of her precisely because she no longer belongs to him. She has stepped beyond his reach, and that distance transforms her into an archetype, the untouchable, the sovereign, the woman who chooses herself. In his psyche, she becomes myth. This is why obsession takes root. He may not even want her in the same way he once did, but he cannot release her. She represents both his failure and his possibility. She is the reminder of what he might have become had he cherished her. This is not simply personal, it is archetypal. Throughout history, men have been haunted by the one who walked away. Cleopatra, Helen of Troy, Guinevere. They become symbols, not merely women of flesh and blood, but embodiments of what the masculine could not control or contain. And yet her role is not to gloat in this haunting, but to continue walking her path. Her detachment must be genuine, not performative. If she leaves only to manipulate, she remains entangled. But if she leaves to honor herself, she steps into true power. This power is not about domination, but about sovereignty. It is the power of saying, I am whole without you. And in that wholeness, she becomes magnetic in a way that transcends desire. The Stoics taught that what is outside our control must never be the foundation of our peace. The woman who walks away embodies this truth. She ceases to beg for what she cannot command, his recognition, his growth, his awakening. She understands that his path is his own, that she is not his savior, nor his mother, nor his mirror any longer. She is the sovereign of her own inner kingdom, and she will not abandon that throne for anyone. For him, this realization cuts like a blade. He must either rise to his own sovereignty or collapse under the weight of his shadow. Some men will resist, clinging to pride, never admitting their need. Others will awaken, transformed by the wound of her absence. But whether he evolves or not is no longer hers to decide. The initiation belongs to him. And so the woman who walks away fulfills a dual destiny. She liberates herself from the chains of self-betrayal, and she forces the man to confront his deepest shadow. Whether he crumbles or ascends, she has done her part. For in her absence, she becomes unforgettable, not because she was dependent, but because she was free. The woman who walks away awakens not only his shadow, but her own radiance. She discovers that the true seat of power lies not in being chosen, but in choosing, not in waiting, but in walking, not in sacrifice, but in sovereignty. And once she embodies this truth, no man, no loss, no silence can diminish her. The woman who knows her worth doesn't chase, she chooses.